Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Race Face, our second official show. We're glad you're here. My name is Rod Wortham.
And I'm Katie Bacino.
And we're going to be your hosts for tonight. Now, a little bit later in the segments, we're going to actually go out to Charlotte, North Carolina, and our good friend Tom Baker with the Race Chaser Update. That's a brand new segment on our show. And then on the third segment of the show tonight, we're going to be joined by young driver Ryan Millington. That's off to an unbelievable start for 2017. So we're real excited about that. I'm sure that you guys know, because you're tuned in here, that we are now going to be on every Wednesday night at 8 o'clock instead of Thursday nights. And we're kind of excited about that because we're making this deal or kind of this pack, if you would, with Race Chaser Online. And we're really excited about that. So Tom, Jacob, we're glad to have you guys on board.
So excited. So Rod, last week when we did our first show, the number one feedback from everybody on Facebook was wanting to know why we think that NASCAR seems to be declining, why the fans are declining in NASCAR. And I thought maybe we could talk a little bit about that and give our input on why we think that it's declining a little bit rather than increasing.
Well, I think there's several reasons for that. If you read what the press says, it's all about, the economy and gas prices, but I really don't think that's what it is.
I agree.
I think the fans today are looking for people to identify with. Their stars have now retired or they've moved on, and all of a sudden there's this void. And the great thing about the sport is we've got more young talent today than I've ever seen in this sport.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, these young men and young women are coming up at the ages of 13, 14, and 15, and then even into the upper NASCAR series at the ages of 17 and 18 years old. That's amazing. But when they get there, unfortunately, the fans have no idea who these are.
Right. And it's got to be weird for people who have been following NASCAR for the past 20 years, and now you go to a NASCAR race and you don't know half the people racing. So I understand that, and it's got to be very different when you're used to knowing the same people. They race every Sunday, so it's got to be.
Well, you'd think somebody would be smart enough to start a show that would identify with these young race car drivers and give them the opportunity.
That would be a great idea.
To actually get on camera and start to build a fan base. What do you think?
I think that would be a great idea. We should maybe do
We
that.
should do that.
We should look into that.
We ought to call it Race Face TV.
I think that's a great idea, Rod.
Because that's what our show's all about. Race Face TV is all about getting young drivers exposure. But to get back to that question that our fans were asking us on the Facebook page is, NASCAR's doing a lot. A lot of the upper divisions are doing different things to make racing more exciting. Now we have the stage racing, and that takes all of us a little bit of time to get used to that. But I actually think that's going to be pretty good for the sport. I think the one thing that I kind of question is it's going to change a little bit when you start to go back and you compare drivers like a Dale Earnhardt or a Richard Petty. They had to win the race to get points. Now all of a sudden you can earn points earlier in the race. And so I think that's going to be different. But overall, I think it's great for the sport. It's more excitement. And like I said, the future of racing is in amazing hands right now just because of all the talent that's coming up.
Now.
The funny thing is, I was talking to some friends of mine that own a couple of dirt tracks around the country, and they're talking about that 2016 were great seasons for them. They look at 2017 as even being better than 2016. So what we're saying is those grassroots fans where we all grew up on those tracks. That's where we became race fans. And, every once in a while, if you were lucky, you got to go out and go to a big race. But true race fans are at their local tracks, supporting their local drivers, supporting their local sponsors. And I think that's important. And I think that's one of the reasons that, from a racing standpoint, that we're in really, really good hands right now moving into the future.
I definitely agree. I think once these racers get some spotlight, I think things are going to be great because so many people are going to the dirt tracks and it's becoming less going to NASCAR races. So I think that's the transition and giving the young drivers spotlight, that everything's just going to go together so well. There's so much young talent right now.
I was talking to my good friend Lauren Rainier the other day, and we was talking about this young 13-year-old kid. His name is Sam Mayer. He goes down to Greenville Pickens Speedway and he wins a super late model race. He was 13 years old. He just didn't win the race, but he sat on the pole. And that's crazy.
He is going big places.
You know,
13,
you didn't see that. You know, again, back. I'm older than most everybody that's probably on this show today, but those are the major changes that our sport is going through right now. And like I said, I think it's great. I think we've got some exciting things coming, you know, to us. There's so many different young racing divisions out here, and I know that Tom is kind of like an expert at this. I mean, this is really what Tom does almost 24/7. And, you know, Tom had his cohort, Jacob, that stopped by the studio the other day. He was visiting down in Clearwater, and he came in, and you can just see the excitement from them, knowing that, you know, again, racing is in good hands. We got a lot of these young sons of racers. I mean, if you look at Chase Elliott now, and you look at, you know, Ryan Blaney, and the list there just goes on and on. Harrison Burton, which I think we're going to talk about, Tom's going to talk about in the second segment of the show. So, I mean, it's an exciting time. If you're a race fan out there, just get plugged in. This is what this show is all about. Go out to your local racetrack, support your local racetracks, because again, that's where the fan base comes from. And so it's real important that we do that. So I think we're getting close to our first break. So we're going to take a short commercial break, and we'll be back in just a couple of minutes.
The Edge, Fridays at noon. If you're an entrepreneur looking for cutting-edge information, tips, tricks, secrets, expert interviews, it's all here at The Edge. Anything you need to build your business, this is the show to listen to. It's The Edge. Check us out Fridays at noon.
81% of consumers search online before even setting foot in a store. We help you create a strong foundation for your digital reputation. We help build your online presence to improve search engine rank and make sure your business information is correct across the web. You could do all of this on your own, but why would you spend more than 300 hours a year working on this? You have a business to run. Save time and put our software to work for you.
All right, welcome back, everyone. You know, Katie, we could sit here and talk about, you know, declining and young drivers all day long, but I think it's time now to go to our new segment, and it's called Race Chaser Recap. Here we go. So now we're joined by the man, the legend, Tom Baker. Hey, Tom, what's going on, man?
Hey, guys, it's nice to be on with you and looking forward to making this a regular segment on Raceface TV, and good to be especially with another member of the No Hair Club for Men club.
Well, that's going to cost you later. But you know what? Let me tell you what, viewing audience, I don't really know of anyone that is plugged into the young racing community like Tom is. And so he's going to be joining us every single week moving forward. We got some surprises for you next week, right, Tom? We're going to have a brand new set down there. And so that we're really excited about that. But Tom, you know, this is your segment of the show, so just kind of take over. We may chime in from time to time.
Well, yeah, you wanted, I know that you were interested in having a conversation about a particular race every week or a particular young driver or two that may have stood out. And of course, we're going to be talking with Ryan Millington in just a little bit. Certainly, Ryan's had a great start to his season, but one driver that you mentioned earlier when you were talking about some of the sons of previous NASCAR or motorsports legends is Harrison Burton. And I thought we'd talk a little bit about Harrison on this program today because Harrison's off to a great start this season, and he really does embody what you talk about when you think about a driver who's got a big last name, but who also has a boatload of talent. Harrison's 16 years old, and he's right now running a mixed schedule of NASCAR K&N Pro East Series races, late model races with his super late model, which is kind of a family-owned team that he's running kind of a Fury chassis house team, I guess. And then he's got some starts this year in the Kyle Busch Motorsports truck as well in the NASCAR Camping World Truck Series. Harrison actually started his year off running for MDM Motorsports in the NASCAR K&N Pro East Series opener down in New Smyrna Speedway in Florida and qualified pole, finished fourth. Moves up here to the Carolinas area, back to his kind of home base here, jumps in his super late model, goes to Concord Motor Speedway a couple of weeks back for the Cars Late Model Tour opener, and again qualifies up front, and early in the race made a mistake, wanted to come into the pits and ended up coming in a lap too soon. The pit was still closed, which meant that he was going to have to go to the back of the longest line, and he made good on it. He came all the way back from the back of the field, ended up winning that race, and then this past weekend went and competed in one of the most prestigious super late model races in the entire country, the Rattler 250 at South Alabama Speedway, and ended up, he was leading almost right to the end, ended up finishing second to Ty Majeski, another young racer that we should probably talk about on a future segment, 22 years old. And Harrison, the 16-year-old, ends up finishing second in that race. So he's run three big races, guys, and he's had a fourth, he's had a first, and he's had a second. It's a great way to start the season for Harrison Burton.
Yeah, he's got a tremendous amount of talent. I was at a couple K&N races last year and kind of watched him run, and there's no doubt about it. But you know what? To think about Harrison being at this level makes me really feel old. And so now you know why I don't have anything up here, because, you know, the weird thing about that is I used to do licensing for his dad, for Jeff.
Wow.
And Harrison wasn't even born then. So now, you know, when you say that and you talk about these young kids that are coming up, same thing, I did licensing for Bill, and Chase wasn't born yet. And, you know, I've got a thing in my office here I have to bring on the show once and kind of do a little story about it, but it was actually a small little, what they call a beanie racer car. And I can remember that the first one that gave me a license to do that was Dale Sr. And so the first prototype that came off, I took it to Dale Sr. and I said, I want you to sign this. And actually Junior was sitting on the wall next to him, and he looked at him and he said, Junior, sign this. Someday if you make amount to anything in your career, maybe Rod will make a beanie racer for you. So now I see these young kids up there being the stars and everything, and it's just, it is amazing, and it's a true testament that racing is definitely a family sport.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, it really is. And Harrison's a very humble young man, too. We had him on our Motorsports Madness show on the Performance Motorsports Network on Monday night for about an hour, and he really stole the show. I mean, he was very insightful. He really talked a lot about what he's gone through as a young racer and kind of the confidence curve. You know, you have some bad luck and you get the confidence goes down, and how much the confidence comes back up when you just go out and start winning again. And, you know, this and the last couple of races that he's run, he's had to rebound from mistakes that he's made. And yet, you know, he's very humble about that and very willing to say, hey, you know, even at the Rattler, he kind of messed up on a late race restart and, you know, gave Ty the opportunity to go by and get the win. And, you know, he said, I threw this one away, you know, and so he's not afraid to admit to his mistakes. And reminds me a lot of Chase Elliott in that situation. So, it's kind of fun to watch these second or third generation racers, and I've got a couple of them in my organization, and they want to be known for their own merits and their own accomplishments,
right.
and yet, they remind you so much of, of their father or their grandfather.
Yeah, that's true, because we, meeting with Harrison down in Mobile, and I know that our guest last week, Bill Rasmussen, the founder of ESPN, had a chance to spend just a little bit of time with Harrison. And I know he walked back and he told me, he goes, you know what? He goes, I think what this world needs is a couple million young NASCAR drivers, because they're so professional, they're so polite, they're so humble, that we could learn a lot from them. And again, if you've been around Jeff's been around the sport for a long, long time. Jeff always had that. He never had that big ego. He was always very humble, always very thankful for the opportunity that he was given. And now you look at these young drivers, and they're given, they're getting unbelievable opportunities in top-notch equipment, which to me is again something different that we're seeing in today's racing. Because again, if you were young before, you might get into a car, but the car never had the opportunity to go out and to be able to run up front, and especially not to win a race.
Well, and you talked about Lauren Ranier earlier on the show, and Lauren's very widely and I think aptly credited with more or less starting the trend of the whole, put a new driver in and kind of grow him up into the car when he and his dad put Davey Allison in their Cup car back in the day, and that's really what kind of started that whole trend. And I don't think they expected Davey to go out and perform like he did and win races out of the box like he did. But really now, when you think about it, a lot of these young drivers start racing quarter midgets or go-karts or whatever at age 5 or 6, and by the time they're 14 or 15, they've been racing almost 10 years. And so back in the day, you didn't have as many of these sort of grassroots divisions for kids that young. So a lot of times when you and I were growing up, Rod, we were watching drivers that didn't even start racing until they were 16 or 17.
That's right. I can remember Harry telling me that Lauren had to do a sales job on him to put Davey in that 28 car.
Oh, wow.
And if you go back and just talk about the things Lauren, bringing Tony Stewart up, it's kind of crazy, but the guy's definitely got an eye for talent. And I do agree with you that I really think that really started back with Davey, because it would have been easy for people to say, oh, he's Bobby Allison's son. But as I've heard Lauren talk to Robbie, it's like, you know what, your grandfather's not driving this car, your dad's not driving this car, you're driving this car.
Right.
So these young kids, they've got to go out and perform, and they do it with such confidence. So I'll tell you what, we're getting really close to our second break. So we're going to take a break. When we come back, Tom, we're going to be coming back to you and your young guests down there. So folks, we'll be right back.
81% of consumers search online before even setting foot in a store. We help you create a strong foundation for your digital reputation. We help build your online presence to improve search engine rank and make sure your business information is correct across the web. You could do all of this on your own, but why would you spend more than 300 hours a year working on this? You have a business to run. Save time and put our software to work for you.
The Edge, Fridays at noon. If you're an entrepreneur looking for cutting-edge information, tips, tricks, secrets, expert interviews, it's all here at The Edge. Anything you need to build your business, this is the show to listen to. It's The Edge. Check us out Fridays at noon.
All right, welcome back. As you can see on our split screen, we have a special guest, Tom Baker and young Ryan Millington. Ryan, welcome to our show.
Thank you for having me.
So Ryan, tell us a little bit about you. Tell us, how young you were when you got started, and just kind of fill the viewing audience in and let them get a chance to know you a little bit better, because that's what Race Face is all about.
Yeah, well, I started racing when I was about 7 years old in dirt go-karts, and I ran those for probably 3 or 4 years, and then from there I ran some mini outlaw karts on dirt and legend cars for 3 years or so. And last year I started running late model stocks, and I ran a full season last year at Hickory, came out second place in points, few wins, and this year is our second year of big car racing, I guess you could say. And we're going to try to hit it a little bit harder this year, run some bigger races, run a few pro and super late model races, and just try to come out with a few wins and hopefully a track championship.
All right, Ryan, now 10 years from now, we're going to go 10 years from now. Say everything is going exactly how it's going right now. Where are you going to be 10 years from now?
Hopefully, I will be driving in NASCAR Sprint Cup, hopefully, If not, just making a living in the racing industry.
That would be Monster Energy.
Yeah, I was gonna.
There's a dollar.
Yeah, I was going to say Monster Energy drink. So, Ryan, let me tell you what. You know what fascinates me is, talk to us a little bit. I mean, I know quite a bit about the late model series and everything, but how much fun did you have in those legend cars?
They're definitely a lot of fun. They're a very unique car to drive with the amount of power and the tire size. They definitely taught me a lot. Transferring from the legend car to the late model was a really easy transformation, I guess you could say. I caught on to late models really fast. They were the bigger tire, the amount of power was just really easy to drive compared to the legend car.
And you now have your own car to race in, correct?
Yes.
Now, I understand too that you've got a very, very unique sponsor this year. Could you share a little bit about that with us?
Well, this year our sponsor is the POWMA Freedom Car and My Computer Career. The POWMIA is Prisoner of War's Mission in Action, and basically that's just to bring recognition for the Prisoners of War Mission in Action. That's
awesome. I think that's a great thing. And Tom, I know you have the highest regards for Ryan. So what do you think? Do you think this young man's going to be a person to deal with in the future?
Oh, I think so. I think Ryan definitely has the talent. I mean, anytime you can start out, have a year like he had last year, and he neglected to mention that he was also NASCAR's North Carolina State Rookie of the Year for his season last year. And anytime you can start a year the way he has this year with 5 straight top 3 finishes at, one of the most heralded tracks on the NASCAR short track circuit, weekly short track circuit at Hickory Motor Speedway, 2 wins, a second and 2/3 is a pretty impressive start to the year. And he's also had 3 straight pole positions too. So he's been the fastest qualifier all 3 weeks. So, and this all after he went down to Florida and got in a super late model at New Smyrna for the first time, running in the pro late model division against some of the top drivers in the country like Jeff Choquette, and rattled off several top finishes down there, driving for Jarek Johnson and Jack Johnson and Team Johnson Motorsports in their Freedom car. They've kind of combined efforts this year. So certainly a lot of talent here, I think, in somebody that will definitely be somebody to watch going forward over the next few years.
Well, Ryan, that had to be a pretty cool thing to come down to New Smyrna, because I know that's a very high-profile race. You got all kinds of big team owners there, people from different crews, and so that had to be an exciting week. Were you here for the whole week in Speed Week?
Oh yes, we were there for the whole week. It was definitely a very unique experience working with Team Johnson Motorsports. It was really the first time in a long time that I'd driven for somebody that was preparing the cars. When I ran legend cars, we had Kyle Beatty Motorsports do everything, and it was kind of the same case, I guess you could say, down in Florida. Which definitely made stuff a lot easier, a lot less stress, and it was just, overall a lot of fun. Tied for the pole one night, so, we had a lot of good runs. I think our best finish was 4th place. We had 2 of them. But it was overall a really great week and a fun experience down there.
Well, young man, let me tell you what, 4th place at Speed Weeks in New Smyrna is one heck of a job. So
That's amazing.
we've only got a couple minutes left here. So Ryan, I want to thank you for being on the show. Tom, it's great to have you on the show. Great for you to be a part of Raceface moving forward. And so we're going to kind of go back now, and we're going to talk to just the fact, Katie, that if we've got a young driver out there that wants to be on the show and he's not fortunate enough to know Tom, how could they do that?
If you visit us on racefacetv.com, you will see the application. You fill out the application, send it in, and someone will call you from here right away. It's a very easy process, and I definitely think you should do it. Get your young racer on the TV. If you're a young racer, check it out. If you're a parent of a young racer, go check it out and send in the application. It definitely can't hurt. We'd love to get you some spotlight.
Yeah, this could be a great place to be able to start your brand. And as you're going to find out with us, is branding is very, very important as far as moving forward in your racing career. And what about our social media page?
Oh, definitely. If you guys haven't already gone to our Facebook page, make sure you go like it. It's facebook.com/racefacetv. Go hit the like button and check us out.
All right, everybody, that's it for today. So again, we want to thank you for tuning in. Join us back next week, Wednesday, our new time at 8 o'clock. Check out our new set coming to you from North Carolina. Again, we want to thank Ryan, we want to thank Tom, and we'll see all of you next week.
See you next week.